Well, good morning and welcome to probably the only place in Northern Ireland this morning that doesn't have a large amount of mist. The forecast looked very promising, and certainly if I go more into the interior, and I'm sure maybe only even 10-15 miles, we'd get some mist, but I kind of want to continue to stay as local as possible. Not least obviously because of the current situation, but also I really am a firm believer in revisiting. Now, I was going to start shooting. You've heard me talk about these trees behind me. I was going to start shooting these trees. You can see that they've started to take on that lovely winter red glow. And we have got some lovely potential of some reflective light coming in there as well. But I really want to wait till maybe it's a little bit colder and there's maybe a little bit of mist on that river. So instead, we do have a very slight ground frost on the go. So I thought this morning what I'm probably going to look for is more intimate little details, either on the ground itself, maybe some iced up, crisped up leaves, or just maybe some little pockets within the woodland itself. So little intimate scenes, little Bimbles right up my street. Let's go for a wander. So because it's only a very light frost, once you come into, now this isn't a dense woodland by any stretch of the imagination, but once you come into anywhere where there's even a slight bit of covering, the frost kind of completely disappears, keeping myself to the margins, to the edges. And the other thing I'm looking for is contrast of tones, and of course that's probably going to come a lot from either some maybe yellows amongst the greens or some different shades of browns amongst the fallen leaves. But the other thing I've got to be careful of is a lot of those brown leaves have got because they've gone beyond. Now, don't get me wrong, kind of almost the sort of X stages of death, whatever, has maybe got a bit of a morbid fascination as well in terms of an image. But I think I'm looking for kind of maybe just different sort of tones of brown. So it looks like right through the gap there I'm seeing some light on those distance trees, so you never know. By the end of this vlog we might be back over to those red trees again, because I am a sucker for those. But we'll carry on, get out of this little bit of covering and see whether we can find something below our feet. Come across a little scene here. I've already taken the image, and what I really liked about it was a couple of things: the different tones of greens, especially with those little sort of stalks through the image, and then of course nestled right in the centre of the frame was that kind of brown leaf. Now I wanted to make sure that the only brown leaf in the frame was that one, so I kind of might have because there's other sort of little bits of sort of brown leaves in and around, so I wanted to make sure that they were removed from the frame, and just that one central brown leaf kind of nestled amongst all of the green, and just little hints of frost. I think actually it would work slightly better if there was a slightly heavier frost, but this is what we have. Obviously it's going to be a focus stacked image as well, because I'm quite close to the subject, and even though I'm close to the subject I'm still out at sort of about 100 mil or so. So I don't know how many images, but I always like to overshoot a focus stack. F8, no filters or anything. And I just wish there was a way that you could put together the focus stack in the field just to make sure that you hadn't missed one critical piece. But I think I should be fine. So glad I actually found something, because see the sun has now obviously risen and looks like it's gone behind a cloud at the moment, but there was some lovely sun coming through, and of course because this is a very light frost, this could dissipate very, very quickly, so very nice though. Right, let's wander on.
So let's face it, this image isn't really all that. Despite trying numerous aspect ratios and crops, just don't think it's a very good image. I don't mind the curves of the stalks, but I think the big thing that's letting the image down is the fact that the leaves themselves are not exactly in prime condition. I think it might have worked a little bit better if there had been a slightly heavier frost, but I just don't think this one works. But always good to try these things out. The one thing that I am most disappointed about is the focus stack itself. There's a slight degradation in the image quality here from the focus stack, so despite taking 6 or 7 images, it looks like that there was still a problem. Interestingly, the image that I shot with my iPhone, I actually prefer it, but I still don't think it's much cop. But put this one down as another one of those lessons.
So changing tack just a little bit and going for a bit of a more traditional sort of scene. And the sun, you might just be able to, you can't make that out just behind me there. The sun's obviously now risen and it is picking out some beautiful colour sort of higher up behind me. And these two sort of very white sort of subjects caught my eye, and I love how the sort of colour is behind them mostly. So nothing too dramatic about the composition, just really paying attention to where sort of some of those overlaps and some of the trunks are, especially in the background, and then having our two most prominent subjects right at the very front. But it really is for me just about the light behind those two trees and how it's kind of almost casting a purpley sort of glow as well. So there is a couple of images along here, there are a couple of little scenes along here that are just proper unadulterated, unapologetic cruff, and I have to ask myself why my eye keeps get drawn back to them. And I think it reminds me of some scenes that a wonderful photographer, Colin Bell, was shooting around his local area. Now I cannot make sense of it at the moment, but I keep coming past it and taking a couple of test shots and just seeing where we go from there. So, but yeah, it's funny how other photographers who you really admire really can't influence your eye when you're out in the field. Right, let's wander on. You know, I've said it before on this channel, and I'm sure I'll say it many times again. One of the things I love about falling in love with photography is just how much more I notice when I'm out and about. I was just actually back recording a little bit of B-roll on that little scene I was talking about before, the Colin Bell-esque scene, which by the way has got some manky static water in it, which is fine as long as nothing runs through it. And of course a crazy springer ran through it. Oh, bit whiffy. I'm sure the owner's not going to be pleased. Anyway, and I just happened to look up into the canopy just where the light was breaking through, and again just a little abstracty, just really about light casting all the way through into sort of the shadows, the cooler shadows. 100% would not have paid any attention to this if I hadn't have all those years ago picked up a camera, and that for one is something I shall forever be grateful for. Beautiful. Anyway, kind of went all like misty-eyed there. Yeah, so I've actually just put the camera into 16:9 crop. An aspect ratio I'm actually starting to really like experimenting with the camera. Now, I've said this again a number of times, I really wish the Fuji cameras would allow you to add a couple of other different aspect ratios over the top of them, and I wish that you didn't have to also make a JPEG image as well. But anyway, yeah, so 16:9, pointing slightly up, not getting any of the sky in because that'll be just too bright, and there's just a little hint of mist and kind of almost a crepuscular type ray coming through there as well. So rather nice. And again, no filters, F something or other, 2-second timer, enjoying the morning. That's what it's all about. So I think this is probably going to be the last scene of the morning. As always, I'm going to carry on wandering through here, but finish with the vlog. And again, just that lovely light, and a bit like the trees across the way, one of these trees really is taking on some lovely purpley, sort of reddy tones with that early morning light. And just at the bottom of the frame, there's almost a little wave of reeds. Now there's a couple of the reeds that unfortunately are in my frame and are in the shadow, and also probably about 20-30 foot closer to the frame, so they're probably not going to be the sharpest, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to clone them out or anything, but I really wanted that little wave of those reeds at the bottom of the frame. Again, shooting with the 16:9 aspect ratio, as I think that helps just kind of frame everything up quite nicely, with the center sort of protagonist being that lovely big pine in the middle of the frame. So yeah, rather nice. Some beautiful light, and that frost in the shadows has kept. So I might even look for a couple more images a bit more intimate, but I think for now we'll make this the last image of the vlog, and I'll go wander on by myself for a while. But as always, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.
So another image that doesn't quite work. The issue that I talked about in the field with the reeds at the bottom of the image in shadow and perhaps a little bit out of focus are definitely not helping. But I think overall the image is just a little bit too busy. Don't get me wrong, the light is beautiful, and I really do like the shape of that central pine. I also quite like the illumination or the luminance of those yellow-green leaves on the bottom right-hand side. But overall, I think that this image is just a little bit too busy with, as I said, the distractions. Despite what I thought was going to be a key element in the frame, that little wave of the reeds, I think those reeds in shadow are just detracting somewhat from that. To help that somewhat, I have further cropped that 16:9 down to a 3:1 crop, and I think this perhaps works a little bit better. Very chaotic, of course, but cropping down to the 3:1 does two things. First of all, it gets rid of that bottom distracting element, but also I think it gives a little bit more prominence to the central subject, that pine tree. I quite like how the light is providing depth throughout the woodland, and of course we have the beautiful light, but still not sure it's a keeper.